want to begin by commending my dear friend and colleague, Rabbi Ilan Feldman, and Congregation Beth Jacob of Atlanta, Georgia, for what they call the Building Blocks program, which is a program on focusing in a very creative way on a number of the major components of our faith. And one of the building blocks, is Torah. Of course, there's a lot to be said about Torah. Torah is compared to the endless depths of the sea. There's one passage in the Talmud, in the Gemara, in Maseches Yevamos, Daf Kuf Tes, which has always stuck with me. It's puzzling when you first hear it, and then you realize that there's a profound message there. Gemara says that Ha'omer ein lo elo Torah. If a person says, I have nothing in this world but Torah, that's it. Afilu Torah ein lo. Then he doesn't even have Torah. He has nothing. What does this mean? What this means is that there has to be a connection between the Torah that a person studies and that person's life. A person just can't say, I'm studying Torah just for academic reasons. It fascinates me, it's intellectually stimulating, I'm going to study Torah all the time. A person can't even say, I'm going to study Torah because that's the way I get closest to God, so I'm going to study Torah all the time and that's it, nothing else. No. Torah has to come along with a life that's lived by Torah. One of the types of people that is condemned in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos is the person who is chachmaso meruba mima'asov. He has more chachma than he has actions. He knows everything there is to know, but when it comes to doing it, he falls short. I'll never forget an experience I had some time ago. I was asked to speak to a group of colleagues of Rabbonim about a terrible problem in the Jewish community, a problem of domestic violence. In fact, it was the Rav's mother-in-law who involved me in this particular activity. She was a pioneer in the movement to protect women against domestic violence. And I had to report to these Rabbonim that indeed some of the offenders in this area were themselves Torah scholars. And of course this was disgraceful. One of the rabbis, actually a senior rabbi in the group who has since passed away, challenged me on that. And he said, it can't be. If a person studies Torah, he can't be reduced to being violent against anybody, let alone his own spouse. Torah ennobles a person and makes one higher and purer and better. It was difficult for me to answer this rabbi because he was many, many years my senior. So I turned to Rav Avram Pam, Zichrono Livrocha, who was then present, great Rosh Yeshiva, great sage. And I said, perhaps the Rosh Yeshiva can answer this rabbi. And the Rosh Yeshiva got up and said, just studying Torah, as he put it, Torah is not magic. Torah has to be applied. It has to be internalized. You have to live a life of Torah's Chaim. That's the meaning of Torah's Chaim. It has to be a living Torah, a Torah of life. It's very easy to seclude oneself in one's own Daled Amas, in one's 4 cubits, in one's own base medrash, and study and study and study. It's got to be applied, and sometimes that takes a lot of work. I had a grandfather, my father's father, Reb Chaim Yitzchak Weinreb, Olav Shalom, who was a student of a very famous sage in the old country in Galicia, whose name was the Maharsham, Shalom Mordechai, the Barzhana Rov. My grandfather told me that when they studied in his yeshiva, on every single page in the Gemara, he would say to them, okay, what did you learn here that you can apply in your life? And it could be a Gemara that's dealing with things that on the surface are totally unrelated to our daily lives. Laws about the sacrifices in the temple, laws about things which we think have no relevance to us. But the Marsham would insist that every student come up with at least one lesson on every page that he could apply in his own personal life. That's the real meaning of Kol ha'omer ein lo ela Torah, afilu Torah ein lo. It can't just be Torah. It's got to be Torah connected to your daily activities, your attitudes, your lives, your actions with yourself and with others. I want to thank Rabbi Feldman and the congregation for the opportunity to deliver this brief but I think very important message to you. Thank you.